Hey there, how you doing? Charlie Winters here with horse racing selections for Royal Ascot and Redcar on Friday the 23rd of June. So let's get straight into it. Disappointing day on Thursday. Let's put that behind us. In my opinion, I think we've only had 3 horses that are really disappointed out of all the selections. It doesn't really help. Obviously, we had a fantastic day the first day, £100 profit, £2 loss I think the next day, and I think we recovered about a quarter of a stake today, something like that. So let's get into Friday's selections. So I am focusing on the draw bias at both tracks. Redcar, you want low numbers. You want them to go straight to the front ideally and bag that far side rail. It won't be as pronounced on this good to soft, good in places ground, but you have got an advantage. And I think possibly with the huge downpours and it's gradually drying out, it could still be quiet. It could be good to soft in the middle of the track. But right under that rail, there could be, as I keep saying, a golden highway. There could be a very, very fast strip of ground right under the rail. And there's a selection further down in my selections that I really think could benefit from that. But let me get into it, and I shall say the horse when I get to it. So it's a 40 pence each way Yankee, and also, to make it to a tenner, a 60 pence each way accumulator. And I think the accumulator could be realistic if our jockeys go for the draw biases. So the first selection is Strip Z at 12 to 1 in the 150 at Redcar, paying 4 places instead of 3. Drawn 2, it can lead, and I think it's got every chance of ideally maintaining itself in the first 4. The second selection is Darbooks at 9 to 1 in the 220 at Redcar, paying 4 places instead of 3. That horse is plummeted down the handicap. It was bumped last time when it was making a run, as the commentary said, completely emptied. And I think if it can bag that rail, it's got every chance. Be hard to pass. The third selection is probably not very good value at all. It's 5 to 1 in a massive field. But I think, so the third selection is Porta Fortuna at 5 to 1 in the 230 at Royal Ascot. This is the Albany Stakes. And I think basically, Frankie is on the best horse, and according to the Racing Post ratings, is on the best horse. Don't get wrong, something could improve past it, but I think I don't really follow the Irish too much. But obviously, Donica O'Brien, obviously son of AP O'Brien, could this be his first Royal Ascot runner or winner with Frankie on his retirement season? Well, maybe so. I don't know. It's the best horse in the race according to the Racing Post ratings. It's improvement from the first run to the second one. I think it was 80 something on the Racing Post ratings on the first run, which is okay. It would make it competitive in this field. Then next time out, it was 101, which is a fair amount above most of these horses, if not all of them. I think it is. So I think it's got every chance. It could quite easily improve again. The fourth selection is Meditate at 4 to 1. I missed the 9 to 2. In the 420 at Royal Ascot. I think it's just got the favourite to beat. Bear in mind, it hasn't beat it yet, but they may ride it differently to try and beat the favourite in that race. I think it's a 2-horse race. So let's scroll down to the next bets. So there's a accumulator I talked to you about. Right. The next bet, I've gone for some big prices. I've gone for, I believe, the 28p doubles and 20p trebles. Sorry, 28p each way doubles and 20p each way trebles. Comes to £9.92. So these are the selections you need to add to your bet slip and put those stakes on. If you can't afford it, put smaller stakes on, but ideally split them in half if you can. So it'll be 14p each way doubles and 10 pence each way trebles. So that would come to just under a fiver. So in the 5 past 3, add to your bet slip, should have been a ring at 28 to 1. This is 28 to 1. Bearing in mind, it only finished at it was outpaced. Well, sorry, it was travelling well. It was tapped for a bit of toe, and then it closed pretty quickly towards the end behind the even money favourite in this race. I think 28 to 1 is far too big. And then you've got Queen Me also in that race at 50 to 1. Kevin Ryan's already had a winner. Maybe the stable are just beginning to find a bit of form. I don't know, but definitely an interesting horse. Then skip to the 5 o'clock at Royal Ascot. Select Clune Macon or Clune Masson, at 12 to 1 and Embrace at 14 to 1. Clunmacon is Johnny Murtaugh's horse. He's won this race, I believe it was 2 years ago. Apparently, according to the Racing Post, it went down the same path. This horse did down the same path as his winner last time he won this race. And Embrace is Owen O'Burrows. It's suddenly got an Irish element to him. Owen Burrows. And this horse, if this horse will appreciate quicker ground, it's massively well in. I think Owen Burrows just targets these big races. I think it's only his second runner on the card. Well, we're back to Tarib, and it was a little bit unlucky in running. It was scared of going through a gap, the Tarib, and it made ground late on, but I think it just chickened out of going through the gap. Well, I think Embrace, it ran in the Guineas, and it was held up pretty much last and made okay ground up. But I think if it wants slightly quicker ground, which it's going to get tomorrow, it's got every chance in a much weaker race. Bearing in mind it's a competitive handicap, but it's a much weaker race than the Guineas, than the Group 1 Guineas. And then the third, like the treble part of the selection, the third race is a 16 minutes past 5 race at Redcar, paying 4 places instead of 3. So if the draw bias is holding up, I think this race could be very interesting. By this time, we could be shaking. If we had a couple of winners or a few placed, we could have a nice little bet rolling on to Your Spirit at 20 to 1 and Lola's Moment at 9 to 1. Right, let me just tell you about one of these horses. Your Spirit is becoming well handicapped and dangerous. The selection is most interesting is Lola's Moment at 9 to 1. This horse pressed the lead and led 2 furlong out, but then weakened very quickly close home and lost a couple of places. This horse, Lola's Moment, it chased a horse at Wetherby that I tipped, and I thought that horse would tear off in front and hold on. I have never seen a horse go so quick. It struggled to even go around the bend. Its name was something like Turbo Tiger, I think it was, and I tipped it up, and it was crazy. It just completely took off. Well, this horse chased it home. Well, none of the pace held up. It completely collapsed. But this horse did the best from the pace. Bearing in mind, our horse that we tipped that day, or my horse that I tipped that day, Turbo Tiger, was completely tailed off, virtually pulled up. Well, this horse followed it through, actually went past it, and only folded close home. Well, if this horse bolts again, gets that rail, and can run a bit more sensibly, it could be extremely hard to beat. And we're getting first 4. So Lola's Moment, if it gets out, I don't think it's drawn close, I think it's drawn 6, but it doesn't matter too much as long as it bags that rail. If it bags the rail and it can be given a sensible ride, it will be hard to beat in what is a poor race. Right, so now let's get to the 40 pence. This is the main bet, by the way, believe it or not. 40 pence each way, lucky 15. And £1 each way singles takes it exactly to £20. So it's £12 from the 40 pence each way lucky 15 bet, and then 4 selections, all £1 each way, comes to £8, makes it 20 quid. And these are the selections. So once again, I've gone in on should have been a ring at 28 to 1. It needs to sit just behind the pace or just off the pace, then pounce late. It should have been a ring at 28 to 1 in the 5 past 3 at Royal Ascot. The second selection is Amaric at 10 to 1 in the 340 at Royal Ascot, paying 6 places instead of 4. Sorry. This horse won well after being, I think it was gelded and a wind operation. It won pretty cosily, and I think there'll be huge amounts of improvement. The only downside is it's drawn 1, and I think that could be beneficial. However, its tactics of being held up might not actually suit being drawn 1. So it needs to get an half decent break, and in my opinion, it needs to be sat in about 8th or 10th place, hugging the rail. If it's held up last on the rail in this 1.5 mile, it's pretty much got no chance. But I don't think that their experience. I think it's Roger Varian who trains it, and they will know all about the draw. So it needs to be just a quick kick in the belly, no worse than 10th on the rail, and then we've got every chance. And hopefully, the jockey's got big enough balls, apologies for language, to stick to the rail, because every single horse, once they come up, once they go around that bend, they are moving away from the rail. So it needs to grow a pair. If the jockey's listening, which he clearly won't be, he needs to grow a pair, hug the rail, bide his time, and stick to the rail and go for it from there. A bit of advice here. Never ridden a horse in my life. So the third selection is Dubai Mile at 22 to 1 in the 5:35 at Royal Ascot. A lot of this is Derby form. Well, I watched the Derby again, and I don't know if you realise is the pace absolutely collapsed. And Dubai Mile, I believe, was the best of the horses that raced prominently. If you go to the form of the Derby, click on the Racing Post. Click on anyone. Type in Dubai Mile on the Racing Post search. Click on it. Go to that day, that race, and look at the commentary, and you will see. I don't think there's any horses in the first 8 that were prominent in the race. And I think the first one you'll see is Dubai Mile. If you watch the race again, Dubai Mile goes for a gap on the inside about 2.5 furlongs out. And the horse looks like it's scared to go into the gap because it can see the horse in front of it gradually edging down the camber. And after that, it just weakened. Well, I think this horse could get an easy lead in front, and it could bully the other horses, or the majority of the horses may not, possibly not the favourite, because the favourite, it showed a cracking turn of foot last time. But anything can happen. We know what horses can be like when they come out the Epsom Derby. They're not always the same. And the final selection is Tawala at 12 to 1 in the 6:10 at Royal Ascot, paying 6 places instead of 4. And finally, what I'm going to ask you is, put 12 minutes in the comments if you lasted this long. I've only just lasted this long. It's been that difficult. So it's loads of selections. You'll be watching race after race on Friday. Hopefully, we'll be getting nervous again with the possible cash outs, because I've taken pretty much all the prices, I believe, or a lot of them anyway. So the very best of luck. Charlie Winters, over and out. Cheers, mate.